Thank you. Way to go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back, council and staff and members of the public. This is, I guess, about a couple of months since our August break, and so it's good to be back for the Committee of the Whole, September 10th, 2024. And before we go to approval of the agenda, I'll pass it over to the Deputy Mayor for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that Wolfville is situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and as such ask that we conduct our business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And before we do the approval of the agenda, I'll just note, I think all of council has been sent this note, but for everybody, the presentation the Swiftbirds at Roby Tufts has been postponed, at least. The person is not available today. So that is the only change I'm aware of. Is there anything else before we move the agenda that people are aware of? Yeah, no? Deputy Mayor? To move. Yes.
I would like to move the approval of the minutes agenda for today's meeting, September 10th.
Thank you. And a seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. I'll ask the question again. Any other additions, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And with 2 sets of minutes, Deputy Mayor, Committee of the Whole minutes of July 9th.
I would like to move that we forward to council the approval of the minutes of the Committee of Whole on July 9th, 2024.
Seconder, please, Councillor Madeira Voss. Are there any changes or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are passed. And Committee of the Whole in-camera minutes, July 9th, 2024.
I would like to move that we forward to council the minutes of the Committee of the Whole in camera of July 9, 2024.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, seconder, please. Councillor Ingham, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. The mayor doesn't usually make comments during Committee of the Whole, but there are a few two time sensitive things that one that council weighed in on. We no longer, as per our policy, do proclamations, but we did have a request from Fetal Alcohol Nova Scotia. September is Fetal Alcohol Awareness Month. Yesterday, the 9th, was actually the Fetal Alcohol Awareness Day. And we did say that we would make a note in council. So we know that there are people in our community who are living with this condition, and it's a good thing for people to be aware of. So I give that to your attention. And coming up this Sunday, all of council has been invited to participate, and of course the whole community and people outside the community to participate in the Terry Fox Run. Registration will start at 9:30 at the Lions Hall. I think it's a walk, run, roll. So mobility devices, and I know there are different, 1 kilometer, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, all marked out, and they do have a website, but I just bring that to your attention. So, any other time sensitive items that members of council would like to bring to the public's attention? No? Okay. That brings us to public input, and those members of the public that wish to address council, please step up, and one of our staff will help lift that. Thank you, Barb, because it's probably not high enough for you to speak into. Just give us your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. And at 4 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of a warning. And they're only, if there are many, I'm sure there's not a half an hour speakers here, so I will allow 6 minutes as per our policy. Is there anybody? There are people from the audience who would like to speak. Barb, sort of.
For you, not for me. Is the microphone on? Yeah, we're ready to go. Waiting to hear. Waiting to hear me talk.
That changed by.
Yes, we're ready. Great. My name is Roger Tatlock. I'm been a resident of Wolfville for well over 20 years now. I live on Grandview Drive. And for the past little over a year, I've been volunteering with Basic Income Guarantee Nova Scotia. Last week, I wrote a letter to council and I thought it would take 5 minutes or maybe even less to follow up with the letter that I sent to council last week. Thank you for the opportunity to speak directly to council. I value that. And I value that it's now 5 minutes, not just 3 minutes. Thank you so much. You'll recall council's motion on basic income guarantee that you passed in March of 2023. I'm just going to quickly read that for you. It was moved by Deputy Mayor Elliott and seconded by Councillor McKay, that council authorized the mayor to write a letter to the federal and provincial governments urging them to create an all-party committee to explore the feasibility of implementing a basic income guarantee. And that motion was passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Your motion really contributed to a momentum that was building here in the Valley. Subsequent to you passing a motion, Kentville passed a motion, Berwick passed a motion, the County of Kings passed a motion. And I gotta say, I'm really proud to live in a town and in a community, in a county that believes that new ideas need to be explored for the new situations that we find ourselves in. I'm not here to pound on the pulpit and say we need a basic income guarantee for everyone. I'm here to pound on the pulpit and say it needs to be explored. We're in a new situation and we need new ideas, and basic income guarantee is a new idea that needs to be explored. That momentum is continuing. As recently as last month, the mayor of Middleton wrote a really impassioned letter to the Prime Minister, and he was in complete support of a basic income. And I would encourage you to read that letter if you would like. It's on the Basic Income Guarantee Nova Scotia website, and you can read that letter. So to date, 16 municipalities in Nova Scotia have passed motions related to basic income guarantee. The two largest municipalities, Cape Breton Regional Municipality, the Halifax Regional Municipality, almost 50% of the population of our province lives in Halifax, and their motion was very strongly worded. So at 16 municipalities passing motion on basic income, that literally represents 78% of the entire population of our province. With this level of support, I assumed that the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities was taking some type of position on basic income guarantee. But through inquiries, and I do have to recognize Deputy Mayor Elliott for continuing to try to find out for them from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities what was going on. So through inquiries, we found out that NSFM as an organization hasn't taken an official position on basic income guarantee. And it appears that that is the case because no member has asked them. So in a note from the Director of Operations and Communications for NSFM, he wrote, in order to move forward with this in terms of getting it on the NSFM's agenda for evaluation as an advocacy priority, a municipality must pass a motion at a council meeting specifically asking NSFM to make the matter an issue on which to advocate. So attached to the director's note was a copy of their advocacy policy. It's called the Advocacy Prioritization Policy. And that policy has been in existence since 2019. I think it's a really good policy. I think it's really well worded. I think it's really well thought out. So the purpose of my letter last week was to request that council pass a motion asking the NSFM to advocate for an all-party committee of the legislature to look at a big for all Nova Scotians and thereby get the NSFM's process for advocacy prioritization started. So I'm asking you to do this today by adopting a recommendation to council to move forward with that. Thanks.
State your name and your address, please.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Stephen Wilsack. I live at 239 Main Street in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. I am here today to talk a couple of minutes about the unhoused in Wolfville and the crisis that we're facing here today. First of all, I'd like to thank council for their compassion towards the unhoused here in Wolfville. I believe that it's necessary. I could talk about this subject for many times and many minutes, but I'll try to limit myself to 5 minutes. It's difficult. We're in a stage of crisis here in Nova Scotia. We have, I've been here, as I mentioned before, the last time I was at council, I've been here for over 40 years. My wife's been here for 55 years. This is home. I've been here since Acadia days. And hopefully we're going to spend our senior years here. And this is the first time I've seen unhoused the way that it is here today. And we all want to try to contribute and make a difference to our society. And I believe that we can do that here. I know that you're going to be talking about emotion or the subject later on. I'm here today representing Housing First Society of Nova Scotia. I'm the executive director. I'm currently working with various community and support groups here in the Annapolis Valley to hopefully build some type of micro housing that would provide immediate shelter for those that are in tents in our community. This is similar to the pallet shelters, except a little bit larger. I have designs. I've been working with the Housing School of Architecture. We've been spending about 6 months on these particular designs. I will pass them on to your planning department. But the bottom line is that the provincial government, the federal government, even within our communities, we're overwhelmed. We cannot keep up with this demand. I believe that we all have to step forward to figure out a new innovative way in order to do that. I believe that with the support of council, with some popular and tough decisions, that we can set an example not only for the Annapolis Valley, but for the rest of the province and beyond of how we can integrate and work together as a community, as government, as private citizens, and support groups. You will see in your agenda about the 4 different options. What I'm asking council to consider strongly is to look at the parking lot that's located at the rear of Railtown as a short-term solution for putting micro housing there. And as we move forward, there are going to be some medium and long-term plans within the various committees to look at longer, more suitable places to put micro housing and possibility of tiny home communities. Again, I could go on, but the bottom line is with the benefits of Housing First, it reduces chronic homelessness. It improves the health and well-being of individuals. It increases housing stability. It's cost effective. It doesn't cause stress on our system that we have currently. And it creates a sense of community. So I, again, thank you for allowing me to talk here for a few minutes, and you can reach out to me anytime to talk about it further. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Should be fine. Great. Hello, thank you. Honorable Mayor, councillors, my name is Mary Norton. I live in Wolfville at 27 Cobblers Court, and I work downtown, not too far from the public library. I want to acknowledge the efforts of staff and council to support people who are currently living in tents next to our town library. Thank you. I also want to advocate for option 3 that's outlined in the report on the Roby Tufts encampment and to support the proposal just presented by Steve. To acquire, install appropriate safe emergency housing as soon as possible and certainly before winter arrives. For most of my career, I co-coordinate an adult learning program based in a community-based organization on the north edge of downtown Edmonton. Bow Street's Community Services has been serving people in the area for over 50 years with the mandate to, quote, help people escape the cycle of poverty and homelessness. Over the time that I was there, I noticed, as did other people, a really big increase in the number of people who were unhoused, starting to live in tents. Tents were just arriving in Edmonton at that time. Winter warming programs were started. Some of you may know that Edmonton winters can be pretty harsh. So during the winter warming program, I and others offered a community arts program. It was an opportunity for people to step out of the night-to-night harshness of an Edmonton winter. And more important, or as important, it was an opportunity to connect over creating. I heard many stories. I think you've all heard, and we all know the many ways that people end up without housing. And there are people in tents in our town who have many stories as well. Over the time that I've lived in the area, I've met and talked with many people in many communities who are unhoused or on verge of being unhoused. And I've also heard many stories there. As we all know, there's a will and a work to start building appropriate housing for all here in Wolfville, but meantime, there are people in crisis. As noted in the report, there's an urgent need for action. There's an immediate need for emerging housing as alternatives to living in tents. When I lived and worked in Wolfville and Nevinton, I've lived in a few places, it's hard to keep track. I learned about housing first. Boyle Street Community Services was one of the first agencies across Canada to implement housing first. They had staff. Of course, it's a much bigger city, many more resources, but they had staff to work firsthand, people who were living rough, to find housing, to find landlords who would support them. We don't have that kind of housing here right now, but the short-term housing that Steve has described would be a step towards transitional housing. So I would also hope that when it comes to council, that you'll be able to vote in favor of that third option. I believe that through partnerships involving the town, the community networks, organizations, and other concerned residents, including people living in tents by the library, it will be possible to provide the emerging housing that has been described. Winter is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Is there, Laura, is there anyone online? No, and nobody else in the audience? Thank you very much for your presentations. I will note just before we go on to, because I have heard from actually both of you, that you wanted to participate or you wanted to watch the discussion with council. We are going to be going in camera and then coming out of camera, just talking to the CAO. This will be on our YouTube site, but once we are a few minutes from coming out of camera, certainly someone here can send an email to say we're going to be coming out, if that's, or you're welcome to sit in the hall for that time, but it may be a bit of chunk of time that you'll have to be out of the council chamber, but we will do that should you or others want to come and listen to that discussion. All right, that moves us to the next item is a conference report, a great report from Councillors Ingham and McKay. Do either of you wish to add anything to your report? This is the town and gown.
No, I don't think so. No. It was
Okay, excellent.
actually a great opportunity to learn, as you know, Mayor
Good.
Donovan did. Yep.
Meaty report. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. All right, and committee reports. I believe accessibility committee was canceled, or was this from an earlier date?
It wasn't canceled.
Oh.
It's just, we are working on the version 3 of the access by design plan. So we're just going through iterations on that. So just to write a fulsome report, I didn't feel like it was going to be necessary. So I'll just sort of update how staff is working on engagement right now through our Facebook and our social media channels to get information back from the public. And so I believe at some point, maybe September, October, we'll be going to the Wolfville Farmer Market. And then, as you know, the soups and sides have started yesterday. That was great. The turnout was great. The soup was delicious. Delicious. The conversation was great. Was really happy to be there last night. Met some great volunteers and that was fun. So, yeah, so we're just in the middle of kind of going through the timeline of how the engagement looks. So probably in December, it will come back to council. So I encourage everyone around this table to fill out their ideas online, whether you're sitting around this table come the next election or not. We really want to hear from everybody. Yeah, and I think that's probably it, Barb. Sorry that that's not meaty enough, but I think we're just really in the engagement process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Counselor Ingham, that when you talk about filling out those forms, is that on Wolfville Blooms?
I believe it's linked on Facebook and too, isn't it, Barb? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I encourage everybody to fill that out. Thank you.
There any questions of Counselor Ingham? Good, thank you for that report. And RCMP Advisory Board.
I must express my apologies for not getting the written report to you. We have our CMP meeting is actually next week on Tuesday, September 17th. So I will provide a fulsome report after that meeting in advance of council's meeting on the 24th instead,
Okay.
because we're not meeting until next
Good.
week.
Thank you, that's great, thank you. But however, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, does anybody have any questions of Counselor Madeira Voss related to RCMP? No? All right, thank you. I will turn this over to our CAO for this would be your first CAO report in this town.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So the CAO report is in your package. Just trying to get to it myself. Apologies. Great. So I'm not going to touch on in detail everything that's in the reports, nor am I going to touch on the things that have already been mentioned through this meeting today. But I want to kick off by thanking both staff, many of whom I've worked with directly at the back of the room here, and council for how incredibly welcoming and supportive they've been through this transition to Wolfville. It's been a fantastic experience for both myself and my family to come to this wonderful community, and you folks have made it all that much better. So thank you very much for that. Just touching on a couple of key pieces that have occurred over the last couple of months. One, we've had some restructuring and staffing changes with the RCMP through our responsible officers here in Wolfville within the last month. So we've sent our kind words and words of appreciation to Corporal Collins, who is no longer going to be stationed out of Wolfville, thanking him for not only his service, but the culture and approach that he brought to community policing here in Wolfville, which has been a breath of fresh air. And we've also welcomed back Sergeant Pelletier to Wolfville, who had a stint here previously, but is now part of our cadre who will be responsible for Wolfville once again. Sergeant Nugent continues to have some responsibility and oversight for Wolfville as well. So we look forward to continuing to work with him. On the engineering and public works side, you've seen in your report, work continues on wastewater treatment plant phase 2 expansion and flood mitigation, which is still on schedule. And there's also been a lot of work actioning the recent funding announcement on the AT corridor coming through the town to prepare those appropriate tenders and get that work out the door so we can see some improvements to the AT network as well. Work is also underway on the Housing Accelerator program. So meetings have begun to start to orient staff and community groups to what can be achieved through that Housing Accelerator funding. And there's a lot of exciting work ahead on that. It's very difficult to turn a page on this tablet. There we go.
Need to give you an old school copy.
Yeah. We've had an excellent season so far at the Visitor Information Center. The newly reopened Visitor Information Center has been a bustling forum of activity over the past number of months. It's a highlight of my family's experience here, going down to the VIC and the splash park just adjacent. So it's been a great forum for folks who are coming into our community, and the recent upgrades have given it a real burst of energy. On the finance side of things, utility bills and interim tax bills have been issued. So we're seeing some additional revenue coming across the counter. And you'll also see at our next council meeting a wrap up on our year end for 2023-24 financial statements that'll be coming to the audit committee later this week. And then finally, it's been a busy time this past week and a bit in particular with the upcoming election. So our returning officer and deputy returning officer have been quite busy with the administration and coordination of that as well. We've got a series of upcoming events that are highlighted at the end of the report. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions of the CAO? Members of council? Everybody's good? Everybody's good? Everybody's good? Thank you. All right, that brings us to staff reports. These are all council policies, are they not?
I think all
They're
but.
the last one.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I will pass that over. I don't know if there is a chair of that committee. I don't know. That's Glenn. Okay, I'll pass it.
I learned that just before my first meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
pass this over to the CAO.
Yeah. So this is the culmination of work that's been ongoing for the folks in the committee will have to help me out a few years now.
Just this year.
Just this year? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Very, very efficient. So you've got a series of RFDs in front of you that some of them are unique to specific policies. Some of them are a bit more omnibus. So I don't intend to go through everything in detail, but we'll go through each item as described in the agenda and answer any questions that you might have on each RFD. So the first are various policies of council administrative amendments. This one takes in council conference and professional development, council board and commission remuneration policy, deputy mayor policy, committee of council policy, and policy making and management policy. So all 5 of those are dealt with in the same RFD. So are there any questions related to that, to any of the policies within that RFD, or any of the amendments, I should say?
Any questions? Deputy Mayor?
I'd just like to ask what you see from your perspective as the biggest changes.
Most of the changes that are proposed in those 5 policies are largely, I'd say they're just slightly above housekeeping. There are the policies that are required of a municipality, and each municipality kind of has the opportunity to put their own stamp on them.
Yeah.
So you'll see, in a lot of ways, you'll see consistency right across the board with the policy themselves and with the amendments that are being proposed. But it also provides an opportunity that you can put some specific culture of the municipality or expectations of the council stamp those right onto those municipalities. Conference and professional development, council board and commission remuneration policy. I don't think there's anything changed there. Deputy mayor policy. So that policy in particular proposes a handful of specifically identified duties for the deputy mayor. The committee discussed those through its meetings. All of those specific duties, I think, were viewed as being demonstrative of practices in other municipalities or reasonable duties that could be defined to the position of deputy mayor, and I would agree with that. Committee of Council policy, there was a handful of what I would describe more or less as housekeeping amendments through that. And I don't think we proposed any changes to the policy making and management policy.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the CAO or members of the committee? Councillor McKay?
I have one question. When we went through the deputy mayor policy, at the moment it says we will councilors will express interest in it, but I thought we discussed changing it to nominations. We did? Okay,
That's right. Yeah,
so I think we just missed that in the update.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the current practice is essentially an individual would raise their hand to request if they wanted to stand for deputy mayor versus what I would describe as maybe only slightly more formal of a nomination process of being
Which we
nominated
have
one of your
done in-
peers. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We did discuss that. We missed that in the written notes. So we've got one of two options as it relates to this. We can either approve what's already there and then make that additional change, or we can pull this out, make that change, and then approve that at a later date.
What is council's pleasure?
That's the only
Could we,
change.
I'm sorry,
That's the only change.
yeah, could we just approve it with that change?
we could.
And then you can, yeah, just empower us to put in the appropriate wording to reflect that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So whoever ultimately moves this could, I guess it's the 1, 2, 3, 4th with amendment as discussed or something like that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, I'll turn.
Okay, no, okay.
I just suggest, Laura, when we put the amendment there, amendment related to the nomination of deputy mayor versus anything less specific. Yeah.
Other questions? I have a couple of questions, and these may be more Robert's rules questions than policy questions. I'm in support of the policy. Right now, the mayor or the chair doesn't speak until the very end. Would that become the process of the person who is in the chair? And the second one, so which means that the mayor could then participate and communicate in asking questions and discussion in the same way that a counselor could. So that's one question. And the second question, what happens when the deputy mayor is not there? Right now, when the mayor is not there, the deputy mayor steps in. So do you have any comments on those two questions?
So that would, on your first question about the participation of the mayor, then that is largely that is somewhat of the intent.
The intent,
Is
okay.
it allows the mayor to participate in committee of the whole as like every other elected official. As far as if there's an absence of the deputy mayor, we don't have specific policy on that. So in the absence, typically a committee would have a defined vice. So it's not defined as necessarily being the mayor. I'm looking at Laura if you've got any specific input. Yeah. So we'd have to define that in policy. Otherwise, what typically takes place is the committee itself, the people who are around the table determine the chair for that meeting at that time. Yeah.
Is that something that can be written into?
I think
sort of
that would, I
procedural
think that
thing?
makes sense. Yeah, every other committee would have a backup chair. So I think it makes sense that we would define that for committee of the whole as well.
Thank you. Other questions? Who would like to move this with that amendment that we discussed? Yeah, it is very long. I know you don't like long ones.
No, I'm happy to move it. I'll just have to read all of them, right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Into the next page. There's another one.
Yep.
Okay.
With that
Okay.
amendment.
So I will do this. This is going to be my last cow. I'm gonna work at
You're
it.
coming in October?
Do we have a cow meeting in October?
No?
I believe we do.
It would be nice if we did, but no.
Actually, the first Tuesday. We don't, oh, I did not know that.
No,
Okay.
that's what I was told.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So with that, I will continue. So I would move that RFD 045-2 2024, various policies of council administrative amendments be approved as forwarded to council for approval. Right? Is that, okay. That the committee of the whole, okay, that council approve the amendments to policy number 110-004, council conference and professional development policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024. Should I just read
Just
them
keep
all and then we do it as one? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The council approved policy number 110-006, council board and commission's remuneration policy as attached to RFD 045-2024. The council approve amendments to policy number 110-003, deputy mayor policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024 as amended. The council approved the amendments to policy number 110-001, committees of council policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024. And the council approved policy number 110-007, policymaking and management policy as attached in to RFD 045-2024.
A seconder,
I'll
please,
second that.
Councillor Butler. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And that brings us to the travel, mail, and miscellaneous policy amendments.
So in this one, it's the policy has been updated to include an option for per diem allowances for meals, and the rates are noted in there. So this is in addition to the submission for receipts when on conference or training, or sorry, when experiencing expenses. We've also added for council's consideration an allowance for attending meetings that are called exceptional meetings when they're called. So meetings that are not part of our regular everyday programming that would be reimbursed to the elected representative at the living wage rate in the valley. So this is if a meeting is called that is not anticipated by council, so something that is not on your approved meeting schedule, and it results in a loss of wage for the counselor, they can submit a expense claim for the living wage rate in the valley. The intention of that policy change is again to reduce a barrier for those who would consider being an elected official when meetings are called at short notice in particular, and it results in having to take time away from their work. Then they have some level of compensation that would be associated with that. And again, it would be based on them claiming that.
Mover, please.
I'll move this one. I would move that Committee of the Whole forward the following motion to council for decision, that council approve the amended policy number 120-008, travel, meal, and miscellaneous allowance policy as attached to RFD 047-2024.
Thank you, Councillor Butler and Deputy Mayor Elliott. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Councillor Palmer?
I just want to be clear on that. So this, we're just reimburse people who are employed as opposed to unemployed.
That's right.
And we're not talking or retired, sorry. And we're not talking about childcare or anything like that. And I wonder if we should have included that in there.
Childcare is already part of it.
Oh, it was
Already
part
have
of it.
that.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
already part of it. So yeah, this is for a counselor, an elected official who would attend an unscheduled and exceptional meeting, and as a result of which loses wages from their full-time position. They can be from their regular employment. With proof of loss, they can be reimbursed at the not minimum, sorry, living wage rate for the Annapolis Valley.
Other questions? We have a mover and a seconder. If there are no other questions, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And council remuneration review policy.
So the council remuneration was reviewed just this past month and a bit. The results of that review are in your report. This was discussed at the task force as well. And through that discussion, it was recommended that the town of Kentville rates for the various elected officials be adopted for the Wolfville elected officials as well. So they would basically be mirrored in both the town of Kentville and town of Wolfville.
Questions for staff, for Glenn, or for members of the committee? No, I have one question. I've always wondered what the $250 for the mayor was for, because presumably the mayor, a mayor could also use the mileage, and I'm wondering if it was from, it's a holdover from the days when we had, you know, 1/3 was non-taxable, and I would certainly, be my suggestion, not making a recommendation, that that be eliminated and the mayor just be allowed to do what everybody else in council does and charges mileage should they wish. I know for me, it's been,
It is.
That's what we did.
oh, that's what
It's being recommended for elimination, yeah.
Oh,
And for the same reasons that you're.
okay. I did not
Yeah.
see that. I just saw that it was in there. And so, okay, I agree with that. It does make it easy. Okay, no other comments or questions? We don't have a mover yet, do we?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham.
I would move that the committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for decision. The council approve the amendments to policy 110-005, council remuneration policy review as outlined in RFD 046-2024.
Seconder, please. Councillor Butler, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, opposed, and that is passed. And I don't have my agenda up again.
We have one
So
more.
we've got grants to organizations policy.
So the substantive change to this policy relates to capital funding requests from not-for-profits and community groups. So discussions took place around removing some of the limitations on organizations looking for support from the town, but likewise some structure from the town to be able to guide and consider those requests in an appropriate way. So what's being proposed is that rather than having a one-time request over the course of an 8-year period for up to $50,000, it be changed to allow for 2 requests within that 8-year period. But those requests still have the upper limit of $50,000, but the minimum has to be 10. So it's in effect, what it's doing is allowing organizations to make a first request, get a little bit of success and momentum under their belt, and come back and make a second request from council still within that 8-year time period. So in that, it's providing some flexibility to the community organizations, but it still does provide some framework and process for council to consider as well. So it seemed to be an appropriate and reasonable balance.
Okay, somebody like to put this motion on the floor? Thank you, Councillor McKay.
I would move that committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for decision. That council approve the amended policy 710-003 grants to organizations policy as attached to RFD 048-2024.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Elliott is seconding. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. And that brings us down to E, which is terms of reference, equity and anti-racism advisory committee, and Barb Shaw is going to come up to that. And this is an information report, there's no motion attached to it.
Good morning, through Mayor Donovan to council and to staff. Following up on my last presentation to council, which was in July, where a decision was made to go ahead with an advisory committee that would be working under the equity and anti-racism framework that we are developing within the town as a prescribed public sector body under the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act. You now have the draft terms of reference for the advisory committee before you. So the only major thing that I want to draw your attention to is that there's a slight difference. We did model this after other terms of reference that we have for our internal committees and advisory committees. The biggest change that I went ahead and put in here, because we do want to ensure that we are providing opportunities for more people to participate, would be under 5. So you would see it as 5.3, and that members at large shall live, work, or study in Wolfville. And then, of course, be from unrepresented and underserved communities in Nova Scotia. So we're just kind of expanding the possibility there and removing some of the barriers to participating in this advisory committee. I believe that the CAO might have some additional information to share with you. I'm also happy to answer your questions.
CAO, do you have anything you want to ask?
Well, maybe we'll do the questions. If there's
Okay.
any substantive questions in the policy, then I'll make.
Councillor Ingham.
Sorry, I don't have it up here right now, but my brain says that you have the mayor and 1 counselor on there, but all the other, Are you gonna-
I should have then made my
okay,
comment.
then,
Yeah.
okay. You knew I was gonna point that out, didn't you?
Yeah. So I missed my cue on the earlier policy when we were, when we did made the amendments on the committee of council policy. One of this, I think the only change we made to any committee was on the membership of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which is, I think, the only one where the mayor is defined as a specific member. So we made the change to have that committee fall in line with all the other committees, whereas the mayor is, of course, an ex officio member of all committees. But we would have a second member of council as the identified member of the committee. So when the terms of reference for the diversity committee was drafted, they used the accessibility advisory committee terms of reference. So we already made that change in the accessibility committee terms of reference. We would propose that if it's acceptable to council, that the same change be made to this one as well. And as I said, I should have brought that up in the last policy, completely forgot. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments?
So, do you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, he does.
So to be clear, ex officio does not vote, right?
Yes, they do.
They do vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the mayor is on every council.
What we did this time, the deputy mayor became the ex officio on voting member.
Okay, great.
But where they're ex officio, it's a little redundant.
Yeah.
So they would be removed as an identified member, remain as the ex officio, and we would put another counselor on there as the identified member.
The one committee, and that's because it's kind of a quasi-town committee where the mayor is ex officio, but non-voting is RCMP. And that's for reasons that were explained to me.
I believe that comes out of the Police Act.
Police Act.
Yeah.
I see no other lights, questions. Thank you. Barb, appreciate that. So this would be a new committee in the new council that when the council setup happens, it will be added to our list of councils, committees. All right, we're moving right along here. We have 3 committee reports external. Councillor Butler, anything to add to your Kings Point to point?
I hope not. It was quite a lengthy couple of meetings that night
Okay.
that we didn't know about. So that's good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, surprise AGMs are my favorite.
An AGM was a
It was
surprise.
surprise, yeah.
Well.
The date had to change, so.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go.
And Councillor Palmer, I believe you attended the the AGM for the Valley Regional Fiber Network. Anything to add?
Yeah, pretty much as presented.
Okay, thank you. And is it? Pardon me? Dan is going to speak to that. Dan, anything to the Remo report? No, okay, thank you very much. Now we have a second opportunity for public, seems a strange placement of this, usually it happens at the end. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's also a request for agenda item from, I think, the deputy mayor, is that correct? So since it's on the agenda, does anybody want to speak again for public input at this point? We may give you, how about we move it to the end as it normally is? Okay, probably. Yeah. I believe Deputy Mayor, this is your request for agenda item. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
So there's a collaborative process underway to add to the safety of the dike walls on either side of Wolfville. But it's larger than that because the Department of Agriculture is topping the dikes farther than the town limits because of climate change. And in that process, being on the Grand Pré Marsh body, there were discussions happening around use of the dike wall as a walking trail. We have all been doing it legally or illegally forever. But this kind of was brought into the public eye because the landscape of Grand Pré folks would like to see this normalized in terms of tourists. And I don't know, can you show those pictures that I took? What is being talked about is what's happened already in the Truro area along the Cobequid shoreline, and there's quite a long trail on top of the dikes, which is probably twice as wide as what we have on the Harvest Moon Trail. And so what we would have to do is approve the maintenance of the walking trail once it is established. The length of it is still somewhat up for discussion, but the engineers want to have the process started by the end of September and completed by the end of December. So there's somewhat of a time onus on that. And the work itself won't be happening probably till 2026, but all these gears have to be in motion to get it going. Sorry, Laura.
That's okay, just bear with me.
Okay. As you know, there's the Bishop Beckwith Dike on one side. That marsh body has not been terribly involved. But I think everybody in the farming community is just glad to see some height being added to the top. According to my records, the last time the dikes were breached was in the late 1970s. So let's hope it's a long, long time until that happens. But as we learned, you never know with floods coming down or coming up. So I went to Truro and stopped off to see what the what the dikes project had done there. It's received very, very popularly. There's a playground there on a site that used to be a motel restaurant. And there's a performance area and there's a VIC and a lot of things that we would not be looking at. It's just the walking trail. Yeah. So that shows the top of the dike, and you can see how much wider it is. I'd say it's double what we have now, and lots of places to sit and watch the tidal bore.
That's at the end, the title board.
Yeah, it's at one end.
Oh, my God.
It's okay, just the,
That's good visual.
Guess we don't
That's
go
a good
after
visual.
the second.
yeah. So that shows some of the information panels, which might be situated. But all that remains to be seen. It's just the top now that we're looking at. And they also have tide times there listed. Because of the tidal bore, people want to know when it's happening. Yeah, so I don't know. Are there any questions? Thank you, Laura, for jumping in.
Counselor Palmer had his light on first and then Counselor Ingham.
So you sit on the Mars Body Board or whatever you call yourselves, and that's both Beckwith. Yeah.
No, it's two different marsh
But
bodies.
which ones do you sit on?
I sit on both of them.
You sit on both. Okay.
But only one has regular meetings.
Okay. Sounds fair.
You're-
That sounds like the
you're not
Mars
surprised.
Body. Doesn't surprise me at all. So what are the farmers, what's their opinion on this?
The farmers are, at every meeting, they get to be a little more positive. They want to see the upgrades happen. They're very concerned, actually, not with the top of the dike, but with the dike roads down
Yes.
below.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the major issue for them. They don't want more people using those roads when they're trundling around with big tractors, and totally understandable.
Because we have to realize that it is private property. That's not public property, right?
No, yeah, I don't think most people do appreciate that, but the dikes themselves are owned by the Department of Agriculture.
Right.
So,
The issue that I would foresee, and it would be like specifically here, if you wanted to make the road twice as wide on the top, you would have to do a significant backside construction on the dikes, inside construction on the dike, and that's going to impact the road. And then if you impact the road, then you have to move the road. So it gets to be, it kind of snowballs a bit, you know?
I think there's gonna be some waiting to see what the engineers come up with. But based on Truro,
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen.
I think that their dikes were built different though than ours.
Could be.
Counselor Ingham.
Thanks, Wendy, for bringing that to our attention. It's very interesting. I do like the visuals that you shared from Truro for sure. It gives a good idea. There seems to be like, I have quite a few questions because this, is sort of coming at us. So what exactly are you asking? And what exactly, like the length of the walking trail, you don't know what it is. How much,
No.
what are the budget deliberations for the town, the staff, et cetera, et cetera. And then how does this work with the department, the province and them building up the dike system and all of that? There seems to be a lot of moving parts. I do like
Yeah,
the
there
concept.
are.
I do like the concept, but what is your specific ask to council? Because you mentioned some things in September.
Well, the engineering is happening starting now. So there's that deadline. The ask really is around the long-term upkeep. So they will set it up, they will make it walkable, and then it's keeping it that way.
So that would be kind of a budget, like we don't know how much that is. So for us to say whether we want to do it, we would need to know before we would need to know what we're dealing with money.
We don't even know when it's gonna happen. And we have some rough estimates. Bev Boyd from the Landscape of Grand Pre has basic costs per kilometer. But that would have to be determined.
And so with the I walk there almost every day, so I'm walking along there. And so oftentimes the grass is really, really high. And so would the intention be to have like gravel on there or would
Yeah.
there always be a path? Okay.
Gravel and a wider path
A
means
wider-
that the grass is less of a issue.
Mhm.
So the way it is now, you're just kind of going through it at certain points in the year. But it would be to set up something to look after it so people can walk on it.
And so you would have no idea of the kilometers like leaving Wolfville heading out towards Grand Prairie.
In terms of possibilities, the initial trail might just go to the river. So walk out and you reach a point where you turn at the river.
Before the treatment plant, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
before the treatment plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but then it could go farther.
Okay. And the intention would be benches and like, maybe signs and, or,
Or maybe
Just
closer to town. That's all up in the air. I think long-term, it would be ideal to go out past the treatment plant and link up with one of the agriculture roads and come into the Harvest Moon Trail or Mercator or somewhere and have a loop idealistically. But a lot of that just has to be worked out because there's so many moving parts.
yeah, I mean, I do like the concept. There's just a lot of questions. That's all right now at this point. Yeah.
So Deputy Mayor, you're asking like, do we generally like the concept?
That would be nice.
And ask for more information?
Yeah, I have asked for some more information, but you know, if everybody around the table is more or less comfortable with this negotiation going on, then we'll proceed.
Or with, comfortable with getting more information, including, because a lot of that dike is actually in the county, so I assume the county's been approached as well?
Actually, that's part of the moving parts as well.
So,
You're
So-
like,
is it my turn?
yeah.
So
Councilor Dearboss?
I just want to what we're talking about is really for information purposes, that these discussions and all of this exploration is going on.
Yeah.
And that in the future, the council may be asked to make a decision around a budgetary decision around whether or not it can afford to maintain whatever is going to be developed, its share of whatever will be developed. But right now, we're not being asked for a decision. We're just being told and confirmed that there is interest among council, but we want to hear more about this, that we're
Some
curious.
measure of approval.
And of interest, I think I would be hesitant to use the word approval because we don't know what we're approving.
I know.
So I don't think that would be fair, to be honest, but kind of blindly say we're approving something we don't, because this will have serious budgetary responsibility, which we don't know what those are. So I think until then, I would be reluctant to use the word approval. However, we approve the idea of getting more information.
Agree with.
And
that.
a lot more-
We agree
maybe
with the
a little
idea.
of interest.
Yes, we are interested. These
More
are
information.
important dikes. I personally am as supportive of the idea of the notion, but I think it's not at an approval stage yet. So just need to clarify, you're not asking for money at this point.
No,
Councillor McKay?
Thank you. Yeah, so I do too like the idea, and I think it does have some economic impact to our downtown, which we noted before. So my question is kind of the same thing. So at this stage, because I think there's a September deadline if I.
To start the
correctly, to start
engineering.
the engineering. Can we do and I'm looking at Devin, an expression of interest to say we are interested in what that might look like? And then get a staff report that comes back to council that says what the costing, what this might look like, and maybe it's Alex, maybe it's the two of you together, I'm not sure. But something that comes back with a fulsome detail, because if we need to say, yes, we're interested to even start the engineering, can we say potentially with these caveats, with this discussions with the county and more information? Is that the process?
So we're actively discussing the project with their lead. So Department of Agriculture actually is getting TIR to build this. So we can bring back more information for sure. I think from my perspective, the big picture of this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. We're not going to get another investment in the dike walls in any of our lifetime. I just am not seeing that. And so I think being ambitious in terms of direction is really important at this stage. Because in my conversations, what they've really asked is, well, we could do it if you want it. And so they're going to look at it as much as we want. I appreciate the landscape of Grand Pre is very vested in this, and I think that's very positive. But I also think going towards Port Williams is very active as well. I mean, I run and bike that way all the time. So I just think we have to sort of level up on the thousands of people that are using the dikes, the growth of the town, and how, like, putting up signs that say you can't go out here, which is the current condition, I really think is kind of unpalatable to most people, that just, there's no enforcement and everyone just walks right by the signs. That just doesn't make sense. So I think we'll do exactly that. We'll bring back as much as we can. So far, I think they've been a bit behind on what we've been told our timelines. The last update we got, they were optimistically hoping to get through some design this fall, but we'll, maybe we can bring back sort of a fulsome information around timing as well. So.
Counselor Palmer?
I think the Director Lee hit my button. It was we want to make sure we talk about the Beckwith too, not just Grand Parade.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're gonna do it, it should be all of it. I think like it's probably further away than 2026. That's my guess.
Glenn?
So if I can just paraphrase council's direction from that conversation, just so we can capture it in the minutes. So council is consenting to expressing interest in the concept and continue to gather information to facilitate a later decision. Does that capture your intent?
Which doesn't require a motion.
No, no.
Okay,
Okay. Good.
thank you.
And that brings us to adjournment to in camera. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I think all staff are going, everybody except. Are there any staff staying for the first item?
For the first in-camera items, it'll just be Laura and I, and we'll
Laura,
call
okay.
folks back as